So first of all, thanks to James for giving me the inspiration to do this specific webinar. Just going to make one minor change. Cool. So I guess with tonight's webinar, I want to talk specifically about the way the body's like locking up on itself at the moment. In terms of we'll talk about on an individual basis, but in terms of what's actually going on as well. So people are more stressed out, people are less likely to go out and kind of explore the world or kind of just do and be more adventurous. So the one thing that we're finding is people are just kind of going into the shells, into the cocoons. People are more stressed out, people are more fearful than ever before. And what this does, it leads to more of like a survival outcome that the body wants to go towards. So whenever the body faces some sort of fear, we go into this fight or flight state. And what we're trying to do is we're going to fight like to the death, or we're going to flee. We're going to run away. They have changed the fight, flight, or freeze, where people will they'll run away, they'll fight the actual fear head on, or they'll actually just freeze like a deer in the headlights kind of deal, where people just kind of lock up, I have no idea what to say or do. And it seems like there's more people more in the freeze state and literally don't know what to do when some sort of stress kind of comes at them quite rapidly, and the intensity is actually quite high as well. Cool. Now, I'm going to talk to you guys about Be Activated, and I'm just going to move this. And RPR. So Be Activated, RPR are kind of like these ideas or concepts that kind of came from looking at the body from a different light, kind of looking at more of a systemic way than anything else. So looking at it from the core outwards, and movement should be more of an explosive manner where the body is expanding, rather than the body actually locking up and compressing on itself. And I'll explain a little bit more when we get a little bit deeper into it. When we face some sort of fear or trauma, it can be stored within the body, and I'll explain more in a sec with some of the cases I've worked with in terms of how we've managed to unlock the individuals to be able to move more freely, or no longer have that same pattern of behavior or that same stimulus of fear interfere with them specifically. So we're actually able to help treat them and move them on, so they actually can take on that experience or that person or whoever met or that stressful environment, and be able to move on and live their life without experiencing that fear, which also makes them a better operating individual organism. So therefore, they actually can make better decisions and actually operate on a higher level. So the body has two main priorities in order to survive. So the first one is actually to move, and the second one is actually to breathe. Without these two things, we actually die. Hip flexion is actually the most important movement. So that's basically just bringing our leg forward. That must occur for us to actually move forward. Anything else, unfortunately, most people aren't really walking properly in the first place. The body moves in a 1, 2, 3 pattern. As I mentioned before, we want the energy to come from the core out. So we have some level of stability first, and then we drive out. What we can actually notice in a lot of individuals, if we have compensation patterns. So for example, right, and I'll go into a bit more detail later, but we might have someone who tenses up their jaw in order for them to walk. So we know that they've got something happening around the jaw that's causing them to create stability and signaling them to actually move, or not signaling them to move, but in order to kind of signal the hip flexors to actually move. If we take out that jaw tensing, they'll probably find themselves in a really weak and exposed position in order to actually move forward. So lots of compensations can actually occur throughout the body, and it's also dependent based on the type of trauma, what area of the visual field it's actually experienced in, and also where the actual person is located or the situation is actually located around us. And I'll go into more of that later on. The body needs to be able to withstand pressure and stresses at all times. Now, the environment, we know it basically is a lot of stress of what's going on at the moment. But if we're not being able to appropriately deal with these stresses, basically what can happen is we can actually have it stored in our body in some form or fashion, whether it's a movement compensation, whether it's the body goes into a fight, flight, or freeze state when we expose ourselves to that position or environment or stimulus, that the body registers as fearful. And basically what we need to be able to do, or what the body actually does, it adopts compensations to meet its two main priorities, as I mentioned before. Like I said, the jaw can be used to help us actually not activate, but basically tell the hip flexor actually to move forward. So then stability, we're actually driving down on our body. So we're actually imploding, not actually exploding when it comes to movement. These compensations can become tight and eventually break. So this is basically injuries, essentially. The body, so for ACLs, ACL is actually a really interesting one. It's actually got to do with, the quad lengthening as much as the hamstring lengthening as well, why people actually sustain an ACL injury. So what you can have is basically the quad actually activates and drives force down, but you could have something as simple as the tibia could actually be driving up. So therefore it actually creates stability around the knee, but probably cause some weird abnormalities within the knee. The way the ACLs actually work is the quad is actually working as a hip flexor, and our tibialis is actually focusing on basically driving down. So therefore we got forces opposing each other, and we've got nothing around the knee to really actually kind of stabilize it whilst we're running. So therefore the knee is unstable, and therefore running, kicking, or something like that changes direction, we get a non-contact ACL. And that's kind of the way I guess is probably the easiest way to explain of why they occur, because the quad muscle is acting in the upwards direction, the tibialis is acting in a downwards direction, the quad is focusing on hip flexion, whilst the tibialis is actually focusing on the ankle complex itself. It's not specifically focusing on that area, but this is basically what happens when there's not enough force to actually help stabilize the knee. And muscles can do the job of other muscles. So as I mentioned before, when it comes to hip flexion, it's not that your hip flexors are tight or weak. It just means your quads are over dominant or way too dominant and actually doing the action of another muscle, or they're contributing way too much at the end of the day. So a lot of muscles will have a primary movement or function. Sometimes they can have a secondary, but that secondary movement can actually become so much of our primary at the end of the day. So we need to be able to find some sort of strategies, in order to make sure that our hip flexors, so our psoas, is actually working as a hip flexor. Our diaphragm is actually working as a diaphragm, and we don't have any other compensations in order to help us breathe at the end of the day. So what do we do? So B activated or RPR, so they're very similar systems. B activated was the original system. RPR is kind of like more of a coach emphasis, abbreviated version. To reverse these compensations, we need to test what the body is doing to cheat in the way it's actually moving. So we've got to find out what's really going on, what's the cheat pattern or the cheat code that's actually in play at the moment. And what we do is we provide interventions to specifically targeting problematic areas or movements, but this might actually uncover some other things or funky stuff that's actually happening at the same time. What we'd actually do is we can actually retest once we've provided interventions, but we also need to understand what's causing the compensation or trauma, as physical, mental, or emotional trauma. And we need to continue to use these interventions and retrain the body to move more effectively. So once we've got this new movement pattern, we can start to enjoy it a little bit more. We need to really begin to own these new movements as well, so we can continue to use those activation points, but we can also move in the direction that we want to go in terms of really laying down the ability to move. You might have more access to mobility, and we need to find ways or other tools to be able to continue to access that mobility without so much relying on this new activation system that we've implemented. So before we move on, I've got a couple of case studies I want to kind of talk to you guys about. The first one is Steph. So Steph is actually the first person I ever did this activation stuff work on. She is a footy player. She basically came to me. She was a little bit jacked up. She was really keen to get into it. The one thing when I found that I was working with her, I was working through her hip flexors. Is she's almost like she started to have like an emotional breakdown, as some people would interpret it, but it was actually an emotional release. Like this potentially something traumatic had happened to her. It was actually stored in her hip flexors. So if you ever poke anyone just below their belly button, just towards the side, and they're really tender and they really don't want you touching there, there's probably something that's potentially happened. Now, I can't really make that assumption for everyone, but yes, you could infer that potentially something is going on at the end of the day. That week she had a footy match, and she said it was the best match she ever played, and basically she was awarded best on ground for that game. But the players were saying that she had greater spatial awareness of the field, so she was able to move around and find the open space and be able to be more of a game changer than just a game player on the field. For those who don't know, Ramon is the soccer player. James, we spoke about him on Sunday. Just nod away if you remember. Yep. I'll kind of rehash it really quickly. So Ramon is a 10-year-old kid as a junior soccer player. His father came to me, wanted to do an activation session, so we did one. The way we actually did the testing and measure how much changes or progress he's made is we got him dribbling through cones with a soccer ball, then we got him sprinting back with the ball as well. And each time we went through those activation points, he got better and better and better and better. He felt some of the words he used, he felt a lot looser, a lot more fluid, just the way he was moving. And from his father's observation, it was actually quite noticeable, those changes. And he did all the activation on himself. I taught him how to do it. So if a 10-year-old kid can do it, anyone can do it, really. Then when we played around with his visual field, we did some muscle testing. We found out that with his visual field that something traumatic actually happened to him. And he mentioned to me that when he was playing soccer, that he was really good in open field, but as soon as someone came to him, they would just basically tackle him and take the ball away from him. So found out that when he was 8 years old, on grade 2, that he was actually gang bashed, and his father didn't know how much of an effect it actually played on him. So when you convert that to the game of soccer where someone's coming close and trying to tackle him, he was basically turning the ball over because it was basically the stored fear response that he had from when he was in grade 2, and it's still within his system. So we had to find a way or a strategy to try and release that so he could actually begin to move through that as well. Then what else did we do? We gave him one activation point that he has to do before training, and that was it. And that was his homework. And lo and behold, his father reported back a couple of months later and said he was all good, and all that jazz. We got Sean, the police officer. I don't think this video will work. Yeah, it's not. No, it's not. No. All right, I know to reply. Can you guys hear that? All right. Don't worry about it. We won't hear from him. We'll move on to Denise. Denise is on the right here. She works in childcare. She was diagnosed with frozen shoulder, and she had a whole bunch of other issues as well. She had a whole bunch of other stuff that happened on the left side. I won't discuss too much about it, but she had a heart issue as well. And basically her whole left shoulder just pretty much locked up. So I got I got her to lie on her back and try to lift her arms above her head. And what I did was I just wanted to see how much range of motion she was able to get. And what I had done is one activation point, and I was just for a left lat to try and release that up. And I was able to gain a substantial amount of range of motion. And that literally only took me 30 seconds. So we're able to get her pretty much 180 degrees on that right side without even touching it. And we're able to get this left side to really, I'd probably call it maybe 30 degrees in range of motion. And lo and behold, her legs actually started to relax at the same time as well, where her body was all tensed up and wound up, and the body's able to kind of release and become free. So we're able to increase the range of motion from literally 1 point. But that was a freaky case. I was kind of blown away because I didn't know what to expect with that one. All right, what do we do? All right, I'm going to get you guys to flip on your cameras. Dave, if you're eating, it's all right. It's all good. Actually, we'll get you to unmute yourselves as well. So I'm going to unmute you guys.
Yep.
And we're going to go through all these activation points on this diagram here. So James, it's probably a little bit hard for you if you're on your phone. Nathan, are you on your phone?
No, I'm on laptop.
Okay, you can see that fine. I think Dave told me it's a tucker. All right, so what we're going to do is what we want to, when we implement something like this, we actually want to have a pre-test. I know, James, you've already done this before, the pre-test itself. So we're just going to kind of just refresh it, and we're going to go through all 12 of these points today. So what we're going to do is we're all going to stand up, and we have our feet together. Standing, yep, feet together, and all we're going to do is have the hands on the front of our thighs, and we're just going to allow our hands to try and touch our toes, keeping your legs straight as much as possible. Just reaching towards the ground. And you just want to take a mental note of where you get to on your shin.
Yeah.
Just take a mental note. I don't need to say it as long as you know. Yeah, just keep a mental note. Cool. All right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to smash out the first point. So we're going to do the breathing one, which is really just your diaphragm essentially. So we're going to use, the way we actually do the activation points, we don't want to be pressing hard because some of these points can be tender. So before we even start, so get your hand out like this. Use 2 fingers. And what we want to avoid is kind of like this jabbing, pressing hard. So what we want to do is actually push into the palm, then actually find the point of resistance with the tissue, then actually start to make circles. And if you move around and use that point of pressing in, then moving, you will start to feel the different qualities of the tissue. So whether it feels restrictive, whether it feels loose, or anything like that. If it feels loose, it's good. If it feels restrictive, there's probably something going on. So what we're going to do is we start with the breathing one. So we're going to find at the bottom of our ribs using the flats of our fingers, and we're just going to rub just the outside of the ribs. We're not going under, just the outside of the bottom ribs. That's it. So James, you should be a natural at this. And we're just going to work towards our sternum. And we're only going to spend another 15 seconds on this. We're not going to spend too long. Avoid the soft point. That's just where the ribs intersect with the sternum, and just go above there. And we're just going to go through the sternum. You can make circles if you want. Yep. All the way up to your collarbone. Do it another two more seconds. 1, 2. I get you guys to stand up again and let me know how far do you get or don't get.
Yeah. Touching my toes now.
Yeah. Where were you before, James?
Probably just above my ankle kind of zone.
So we gained what, another 5 centimeters, 10 centimeters?
Probably another 15 centimeters.
Oh shit!
Oh my goodness.
How'd you go, Nathan?
Gained probably about 3 or 4 centimeters.
Yeah, and we're not even forcing it as well, which is kind of the neat part. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to blitz through these, and we're going to do the intervention afterwards. So we've got a little bit of a taste of kind of the way we would do it. Another way you could actually do it, these interventions, is just do a squat, like an air squat. So if you're doing this with someone, hey, just squat first, squat 10 times, tell me how you feel, run through these interventions, squat again, let me know how you feel again. Pretty simple. So the next one we're going to do is the psoas. So we're going to find our belly button. We're going to go inch across and an inch down with the flats of the fingers. And we're just going to kind of just dig in towards the spine. Should be pretty tender. You're digging in. Just make little circles. We're going to do this for 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. All right, next one we're going to do is your glutes. So we're going to find the base of the skull. Like so, with the thumbs. Then we're just going to go from the spine outwards, all the way towards the ears. Just using your thumbs, doesn't have to be too hard. You might find points where it feels a bit more restrictive, so you can spend a bit more time there. So kind of feel your way through this one.
Yep.
Yeah, all the way towards your ears. Then what we're going to do is go behind the ears with one finger and pushing forward into the jaw, all the way down the jawline.
Yeah, it's tender.
So this one's the most tender one, well, one of the most. Cool.
Oh.
All right, done. Next one we're going to do is our hamstring. So this one's a bit of a weird one. So basically, view my ass with this one. So the top of the glutes, all the way around to the bony part of the hip. And all we're going to do is make some fists, and we're just going to hammer out just above the glute. And it should start to loosen up a little bit. Good. That's it.
Yep.
Next one we're going to do is your hips. So this one's more for lateral movement. So what you can do, if the bony part of the front side of the hips, you can make a fist and just hammer out. Up and down. Good. And relax. The next one we're going to do is your lats. So this one is probably a little bit harder to find. So the way I like to do it is you find your belly button. So find your belly button.
Yep.
That's it. Find the midway point. Find the midway point and find your ribs. Then move everything up 1 point. Then you should hit your thumbs. We'll keep disappearing. And just rub. So this one should go in between the ribs. Yeah, should be quite nasty, this one. And relax, that's good. Next one we're going to do is your quads. So 2 parts to this one. We're going to go to the side, in between the top of the rib, or the bottom of the ribs and the top of the pelvis. And we're just going to kind of just massage in between, using your flats of your fingers, all the way to where your obliques meet your abs. So this one should be quite tender for a lot of people. And make sure you do both sides as well, so you do it at the same time. And what you might notice is with this one, it's actually quite interesting to actually see people's ribs sit inside the pelvis. So for those who think they're doing a lot of core work, it's basically, if your pelvis is this, your ribs just basically sit inside here. And that is not core, because everything's just locked up on itself.
Yeah.
So there. The second point for your quads is you do this one standing. It's 1 foot forward, 1 foot back. You'll find a bit of a line in your quad or the inside. So what you can do is just use the flats of your fingers, just rub. And this one should be quite sore. Just kind of like you're trying to separate. We'll do that both sides. So it's just the inside of the quad right there. all the way towards the knee.
Nice one.
About halfway up the thigh as well.
Yeah, mine's tight.
Yeah. So for those, this is actually a good thing. So for those athletes, say, oh, they're going to do more knee work and they've got big old juicy quads. And it's like, no, it's actually the opposite. They actually need to loosen up through here, and their quads will be able to work a lot more effectively. So it's not they need more quad work, they just need to release through here because the quad muscles aren't actually able to slide efficiently over each other.
Mm-hmm.
So bigger quads is not better. All right, next one we're going to do is just your neck. So finding your collarbone. So you can kind of go, yeah, that's it. Just rubbing the top, actually, and just below as well. So kind of like that space of the bottom of the collarbone and the ribs.
Yeah.
Cool. Next one you do is kind of like where the pec and the delt, kind of like that divot point. So you dig your fingers in. You can do both at the same time if you want. Doesn't really matter. Just dig your fingers in, creating space in between the two. Yeah, nice and deep, nice and deep.
Sore.
Yeah.
Good. Actually, I think we missed one, sorry. It's the actual calf point. So we'll go back to the yellow. Is we're going to find your belly button. So I don't know if you see my belly button. Belly button, and between the ribs and the belly button on a 45-degree angle, just got to go there. So my belly button's there.
Good.
So it's the calf point, rub, 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 rub. Then, done supraspinatus. The next one we'll do is your shoulder. So this one we're just going to do like a gorilla claw. And we're just going to go underneath the pec, all along the ribs. Just kind of just rubbing just in the general area. Underneath the pec. Right up underneath.
Yeah,
No,
that's
this
me
one
too.
sucks. It sucks. Right into the armpit, under the pec,
Oh, my
on the
God.
front, near the sternum. Rub, rub, rub. Underneath the pec.
Yeah.
Wait, some nasty stuff.
Don't wake me up too much. This is.
No, this will actually help you get to sleep.
Oh, well, oh, good. Well,
Because your body's more relaxed now.
Oh.
Or should be, we'll find out. Then the next one is, well, the last one is just the abs. So we're actually going to just do a simple karate chop in a part of the thigh. Sorry, my video is a bit skipped.
Disappearing. It's like a Devo video clip.
There we go.
We just need your music in the background.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, karate chop. And when you're ready,
What were you karate chopping, sorry?
The inner
just
thighs.
the inner thigh.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all the way up and down, all the way towards the knee. And relax, good. Now feet together. Reach for your toes. See how it feels.
Oh, I can put a whole palm down further.
Go off. I can touch the floor. That's good.
There you go. Add another
How do you
few more
feel?
centimeters.
Yeah. The nice thing about
That's how
it
much
is,
extra.
Easily touch the floor.
so the nice thing about these drills, they can be implemented at any time, especially if the body feels locked up in any way as well. This can be done as a warm-up drill before you train. So we probably spent about maybe 5-6 minutes, and it was me explaining at the same time as well. So if you're really fast, you can spend about 30 seconds on each point, and you'd be done in about 4 minutes.
Cool.
Is that up on the wall in the facility, this part where it says breathing, etc.? Or is it just a diagram we've got?
We've got both.
It's more
Yeah,
pa-
I've seen that, yeah.
Yeah,
go on,
okay.
So definitely an easy thing to implement. I've implemented with a lot of the junior athletes. They seem to love it because they feel a lot more activated and switched on when they're in training, especially if they may have a break and a short turnaround time. So it's a nice way to kind of like get everything firing and everything a little bit looser for them. So definitely something that's worthwhile to be able to implement. So
Well, that's what I'm for every session, isn't it? Some of those.
Yeah, so we get specific things for specific people. For you, it's more just let's get the breathing, get the diaphragm, and the glutes. And if you had to do only 3, the zone 1 is breathing, psoas, and glutes.
Right.
If you can do any of them, those are the 3, and those are the 3 we get you to do. I know you had knee issues in the past as well, James. So we end up doing a little bit of work to your quads, and Bob's your uncle kind of deal. Your quads ended up feeling a lot better afterwards.
Yeah, had improved a lot actually. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. You're a proofs in the pudding guy.
Yeah, that's right. Not so much pudding, not pudding now though.
Yeah. Proofs in the steak. I don't know. Good. Yeah, that's pretty much it for tonight. Nice and easy one. James, what was your thoughts?
I was also thinking about trauma from a mental perspective as well. So you were saying that could be used for sort of mental trauma too? Is that what you? Yes.
Yeah, it can be used in a mental capacity. So I had a client. The way she was moving, her glutes wouldn't really fire. I noticed. So, and she would come from work really stressed out. So I was like, all right, let's just try this instead for our session. Sorry, I'm just going to move the video so I'm actually talking to you. That's better. So we ended up doing a full session on the table. So I'll actually go through each of the points. I got to her hip flexors, and basically I found, I won't disclose her specifically, but she was basically sexually abused or sexually harassed at her old work many years ago when she was working on a farm. And this kind of made a lot more sense to me in terms of her movement patterns, that when she was doing like a lunge or something like that, she would always collapse forward. She would never be able to really use her glutes to keep posture. So, but the funny thing is though, she was in very much an anterior tilt. So she was trying to be tall, but she couldn't really get her pelvis tuck under to use her glutes in order to really like move forward or use her glutes to a greater capacity. Then what we did is basically, because it's all locked up within the body, it ended up being more of an emotional release for her. Then what we actually did from there is we worked on her glutes. And what I did to her is like any time that you feel like you need that extra oomph of kind of courage, I told her just to squeeze your glutes. So we call it the ninja butt squeeze.
Okay.
No one knows about it.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting because our posture really dictates the way we actually feel. So if you look at a depressed individual, they're all slumped over.
Yeah.
Anxiety-driven individuals, ribs flared, shoulders back, walking on the balls of their feet. That's your prototypical anxiety depression. They're total opposite ends of the postural spectrum, per se. So in terms of how to actually assist someone from this, it's almost like you need to walk them through the actual trauma itself, because you begin to unlock it. Once you begin to unlock the actual trauma of what they've experienced, is the body can begin to process it.
Okay. So you unlock it on a physical level, and then you can process it on a mental level. Yeah,
then the body can begin to process it. So when they later on down the track, if they do confront something that's very similar that used to provoke that same feeling of anxiety or whatever it may be, is you've got some tools you can implement, squeeze the butt, then the body can kind of stand tall or be in a better position in order to deal with the actual negative stimulus.
Okay. So let's say my friend Bob, right, had a massive panic attack when he was younger, and it was quite traumatic. And what happens these days is that he freezes up a lot. Conversationally, can't think his way through certain things, and is it like a freeze mechanism that happens? How could you do something with the body to help process that kind of trauma?
Potentially, you could just walk them through this process. It'd probably be better off to do it in an environment where you feel safe and comfortable at the same time as well. And that's also a critical point to put out, is the stuff that I did it one-on-one in a spot where no one else was able to see as well. So she was able to be herself throughout the whole time and be comfortable and be able to deal and process with what's going on.
Yeah. All right, cool.
So
well,
probably
Bob was actually me. Ha, gotcha. But yeah, okay, yeah, good.
Yeah.
I see.
But
okay.
Yeah, so then we begin to unblock it. But then obviously potentially other interventions are required. But usually people who suffer from some sort of trauma, usually the body begins to lock up on itself and they begin to display injuries that are very, very consistent over time as well.
Okay. Yep. Right, great. Cool.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I might have to have a session with you and see if we can shift some stuff then.
Yeah. We're just trying to unlock it and just let your body process it.
Okay, cool.
Nice.
Thank you. Yeah, good.
All good. Mum.
The key thing, I need to be doing more. I need to be doing more of it.
How many times a day should you do it? Is it once a day thing, or is it do you do it multiple times a day, or it just depends on how much you need?
It varies from individual to individual. The one thing I'd always say is, wherever you do experience it, that feeling of anxiety or freezing up, do it right before it, if you know you're going to go into that environment.
Yeah. Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're becoming more well equipped to go into battle, essentially. Then the other.
That kind of thing that, it's probably difficult sometimes to do if you're mid-conversation, suddenly you're going, doing all these things, and they're looking at you like, what the hell is this guy doing? Maybe there's some sort of more secretive moves, like you said before, where, you clench the butt cheeks or whatever.
The ninja butt squeeze.
Yeah.
So try it with Caroline next time you talk to her. So try it when you're just in a relaxed position, standing, talking to her. Then just tense your butt cheeks and see what happens in the delivery of your voice.
Yeah, okay. All right. I'll probably go higher.
No, it actually gets stronger. It could get stronger. Because the glutes are actually important for posture.
Oh, I see.
You talk to someone who's slumped over and depressed, the delivery of what they're saying is really weak.
Okay. Yeah. I see.
That's why a lot of real estate agents or alphas, they're really tall in their posture, and they're not tense in their glutes essentially, but they're really strong in their posture, and their delivery comes out as a result.
Okay. Right. I'll take note of that to see how many people are squeezing their butt cheeks when they're talking to me.
Hey, you're the one that's going to be doing
it. Yeah. Cool. Sorry, Lorraine, didn't mean to cut in.
Oh, that's right.
Do you have anything else, Mum?
No, just that was a key thing for me, just realising I need to do more of that.
Incorporate to the warm-up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, the good thing is it works well with squads. And hopefully when we get into squads, that can actually show you its real potential in a larger group.
Actually, one thing too, you know how you used to have the little sticks? What difference is that to using your fingers?
Just use your fingers.
Yeah,
because that way you just
do
get
your
used
own
to your
thing.
fingers.
Yeah.
Otherwise you'd be
You don't need another bit of equipment, yeah.
No, just use your fingers.
Mm.
Nathan.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting, especially that the mental trauma and how it can be stored in in muscles. Like it's a interesting concept, and it makes sense. Like using the examples that you had. So I thought that was really interesting. Obviously, well, for me, RPRs. This is the first. Well, in recently, as I've come on board in athlete and learning off Trent, this is the first time I've sort of started to use it and learn the methods that it's involved. And I definitely have seen its benefits in my own training and just through some interventions that Trent's run through with me. So yeah, no, definitely think it's worthwhile trying out. Yeah, definitely will benefit you.
Nice. Dave.
Yeah, no, I thought that was really cool. Yeah, I'd be keen to learn some more about that RPR stuff. Yeah, when the day gets there, we'll get there. Yeah, so my sort of understanding about mental trauma and how it affects the body is it's, invokes the sympathetic state, so that fight or flight or freeze response, which I learned from the culture, so an internship I did. So basically, yeah, so if someone has like claustrophobia or a fear of crowds or even introverts who don't like or social anxiety, that sort of thing, as soon as you get them on like a testing table, they just lock up. And so when you're assessing them for like ranges of motion and whatnot, or active ranges of motion, they just lock up. And then as soon as you get them calm, then you notice, oh, like wow, like they're really flexible and like you get way more range in what they get. So James, yeah, so the 90-90 hip lifting is in there for a reason.
Okay.
It's meant to calm you down. So yeah, it's a really cool tool. So yeah, it's really cool how to turn the dial up and down to make people calmer. And yeah, just the mental trauma can spike up that dial of the flight or fight response, which is I think cool. So yeah, I'd be keen to learn more about that RPR stuff.
Yeah. And I think another thing that's quite important is like this is not the silver bullet at the end of the day. That's probably just what there's other ways in order to, I wouldn't say hack the nervous or the autonomic nervous system like our fight or flight. It's just another way that we can implement to get into and take control over it. So we're not out of control, we're still within control, and actually use that fight or flight to our advantage to some degree later on. That's probably the most important thing to probably take out of this. That this is one way to look at it. I do use this plus the breathing stuff with a lot of clients as well. James, you're the example of it. That we do a lot of the activation stuff, bring your system down, make sure that zone one's working really well. So when you do go into the breathing drills, then we can potentially get a bit more out of it as well. So your ribs start to move, your core starts to work, then your hamstrings start to really begin to fire. So then you can really start to move well through your hips.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great.
So it's a tool in the toolbox. It's not the one tool that does all.
It's like there's other things like tapping as well, isn't there? I've heard of where you tap I think sort of under your eyes and things like that, and that can help to calm your system down as well. There's a few tools like that that I've been taught over a long period of time. But yeah, that sounds
yeah. There's heaps of tools out there to calm the system down. There's plenty of tools. Probably the best one that I've found is anything that involves breathing. By far.
Yeah.
So you can actually take control. If you can take control of your breathing, you can take control of the response that's going through your body at that point in time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's why the 99 is really good. That's why the activation is really good because it gets your diaphragm to start to work a bit more effectively in terms of the function, less through your neck as well, through accessory muscles. Then you begin to move a lot better at the end of the day.
Yeah, the 5 breaths in kind of thing, that kind of stuff's really good. Actually, I find that quite helpful, especially on a walk.
box,
Yeah, the
box breathing.
one. Yeah, the box
Yeah.
breathing. That's awesome.
Box breathing is great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Cool.
much it That's pretty much it for tonight. So let's sign off and
Great. And enjoy the rest of the evening and keep warm.
Two.
Awesome.
See you on Sunday.
You jump on the coffee chat,
Who's that? Is that you talking to me?
James? Yeah.
Yeah. For the coffee chat, yes. Yeah, I'll be there on Sunday. I'm going to make more of an effort to turn up to these things, even if other people don't.
Oh, don't worry about that. The show, hey, James, the show always goes on. Doesn't matter who turns up.
I believe so. I believe it does too. No, you guys are doing a great job. Are you two in the same place? Are you in the gym together? Is that in the...
No, this is the old layout behind me. The background's the old layout.
Oh, these are the backgrounds.
Backgrounds.
I thought you were both at the
Facility.
facility. I'm thinking, how come I can't hear you both in the same room? Right, gotcha. So these are just pictures. There you go.
Background. Go to virtual background in your Zoom. Have a look at the settings, and you can put up any. In fact, what you could do is put up your what was it? Your new release.
Yeah,
You would have
okay.
and have that on the background. Have it up for your coffee chat.
Great idea. All right, cool. I'll look into that. I'll have a rave party going on. Awesome.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to go. I'm sure you
Thanks,
guys will have a bit of a chat. Bye.
No drama.
Right.
See you. Bye. All right. Thanks, Trent.
See you guys.
Enjoy.
Cool. Have a good one.
Have a good
See ya. Have a good night.